Are doctors really lying to us? Well, not by my definition of lying. In fact, I found the title of this book rather clickbaity and didn't read it for quite some time. When I did, I found I'd been missing out. It's an excellent explanation of how medical myths that can harm our health are propagated. I think this is an excellent read for those who follow me. I'm presuming most of you aren't biochemists like myself, nor medical professionals like Dr. Barry. If you are, you likely follow folks like Dr. Peter Attia, who has been writing a book forever and teasing us about when it will be available. But Dr. Barry's specialty is like my own. It is making the science accessible to laymen. If you want to know about reversing diabetes, obviously I think you should follow me. Though I admit Dr. Barry covers this topic well also, even if he isn't quite as focused on it as his primary topic. And yet, though I consider myself well educated on health topics, I was surprised by what I learned in this book myself. I have had bad doctors. I've had doctors who were ignorant of basic facts, which, given the body of knowledge involved in medical science and the myriad of specialties involved, is somewhat forgivable. I've had doctors who are rather authoritarian, which I personally find much less forgivable. It's my body. I will make the decisions regarding it. I'm not a do what she's told kind of chick. And I've had some very good doctors as well who may not have known everything, but who were willing to research and or learn along with me. My most recent endocrinologist was utterly brilliant and nearly more excited about me reversing diabetes than I was. And she had a lot of helpful advice when I was getting off insulin and later weaning steroids and thyroid meds. Honestly, prior to Dr. Yan, I used to consider endos generally to be idiots. She proved me wrong. To be fair, I'm a pain in the ass type of patient. I show up at every appointment with a long note detailing my history, my meds, and my current concerns. I insist on seeing all my labs and imaging reports and have opinions about them which may or may not correspond to the expert opinions like so-called normal lab ranges. I don't accept simple explanations, rather insist on fully understanding what is going on and why particular advice is given. I ask hard questions. In school, I was always teacher's pet because I wanted to really understand, but in a busy medical practice where the physician has limited time for each patient, I'm quite a pain in the ass. But even the worst doctors I've had, I assume, are well-meaning to some extent. Some are likely frustrated with me, and some I have written off as stupid, though I'm a bit confused about how someone even passes the MCATs and gets into medical school, let alone becomes a practicing physician with some of the stupidity I've seen. But I've never thought a doctor was actively lying to me. I've thought they were ignorant, stupid, authoritarian, lazy, or otherwise annoying, but never lying, which implies malicious intent. This is why I felt the title of this book was clickbaity and avoided reading it for a long time. But the fact is, I like Dr. Barry. I often use his videos to explain things to people I counsel, such as why there's no minimum amount of water you need to drink to lose weight. He does a really good job of explaining the actual science to laymen. He's also a great resource for those who do a different type of keto than I do, as he leans more towards carnivore-ketovore than I do. When it comes to keto, I'm more of a big salad kind of chick. If you're like me, you'll want to follow Amanda Rose at Eat Like a Bear. But for those who don't enjoy or tolerate a vegetable-heavy diet, Dr. Barry is a good resource for a more meat-heavy diet. Links to relevant information are in the description box below. This was very relevant to me when my best friend was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and asked my advice. I've known Pete for 3 decades, and no amount of nagging had increased his vegetable intake. I knew he would not do keto the way I do keto. I leaned heavily on Dr. Barry's information when advising Pete, And in 3 months, he'd reversed his diabetes diagnosis without ever having been on any diabetic medication. A year into this, he was down 50 pounds. So I eventually had to get over my objection to the book title and actually read the book, as I had grown fond of Dr. Berry's videos. It's a good thing I did, as I learned something that would greatly impact my own health. Dr. Berry explains in his own professional biography and how he wound up a fat and unhealthy family doctor giving rather bad advice to his fat and unhealthy patients. In doing so, it becomes clear how the medical establishment ends up perpetuating old wives' tales about health, the things everyone knows, many of which are untrue. There is a disconnect between the current research, which no one can keep up with. There's over 3 million articles a year, and what is in current textbooks, which are decades out of date when they're published. And really, when learning, one doesn't research every statement in a textbook to verify its accuracy. I certainly didn't do so when learning biochemistry. I assumed the Krebs cycle was correct in the book. But regardless of whose fault it is, that there is a disconnect between scientific knowledge and actual medical practice, there is one. And it covers a lot of common issues, such as type 2 diabetes, which has become epidemic in our country. Sadly, even among children. Unfortunately, there are many areas of medicine to which this applies, not just diabetes. In order to cover them in depth would require an encyclopedia, not a single book. At the end of each chapter, Dr. Berry provides references for other books, so you can go deep into any issue that affects you specifically. As someone who has been combing through both layman-oriented materials and the actual scientific research for many years, I'm actually familiar with many of his recommended books, and it's a list I might have generated myself. Some of the topics Dr. Berry covers in this book that may affect your health include: low fat is not the best way to lose weight, milk isn't a necessary food and may be harmful, low fat isn't helpful for heart disease and won't improve your lipid panel, whole wheat isn't a health food, problems with the recommendations in the USDA's food pyramid or their food plate, just all their recommendations pretty much since the 50s, why exercise isn't particularly helpful for weight loss, nuts and seeds aren't a problem with diverticulitis and other colon issues, the myth that testosterone causes prostate cancer, postmenopausal hormones and why we need bioidentical estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone to feel our best. Viruses don't respond to antibiotics. Salt isn't bad for you and we usually don't get enough. Fallacy of the calories in, calories out model of weight loss. The myth that calcium causes kidney stones. Why TSH is insufficient to diagnose many thyroid problems. Why we need more vitamin D than most of us get. That breast milk contains everything a growing baby needs. That sunlight isn't necessarily causative in skin cancer, that fiber doesn't produce a healthy gut, that eating red meat doesn't cause cancer, that carbohydrates are not necessary to good health and may actually harm health. Grilling meat doesn't cause cancer, and processed meats and the nitrates or nitrates used to produce them don't cause cancer either. I could wish for a few other topics to be included. In addition to sodium, I wish he'd covered the necessity of getting sufficient potassium and magnesium as well. I'll link to my videos on these topics below. I also would have liked adrenal insufficiency to be covered. There's a lot of stupidity in alternative medicine about so-called adrenal fatigue, but mainstream medicine doesn't cover it much better, only admitting the extremes of Addison's and Cushing's. Admittedly, I have a particular interest in this topic because my youngest sister was the second child born with congenital adrenal hyperplasia that survived childhood. and I've suffered from adrenal insufficiency myself, though I reversed that as well as my diabetes. But adrenal issues often go hand in hand with thyroid issues, especially when thyroid problems are only treated with T4 medications. So it seems to me to have been worth a chapter in his book. I'll link to a good resource below. Honestly, I read this book primarily to know whether to recommend it to those I counsel. And though I don't agree with everything Dr. Berry says 100%, because I'm opinionated and ornery, I do recommend it highly. Obviously, the book is linked to in the description box also. It's available via Amazon in paperback, on Kindle, which is how I bought the book myself, or as an audiobook. And with a free trial of Audible, you can get it as one of your 2 free books. But though I was primarily reading it as someone who explains science to laymen myself, I found some extremely useful information in the hormone replacement chapter. I was aware of the usefulness of bioidentical hormones, but I had postponed doing anything because of the long list of more critical medical issues to be addressed first. However, I'd never considered the need for testosterone, just estrogen and progesterone. Reading the book Dr. Berry recommended about a year ago, I knew exactly what to look for when searching for a practitioner to assist me with this area of my health. I found a brilliant CRNP with many years' experience in women's health to treat me. She prescribed a compounded topical ointment, mostly progesterone with a bit of estrogen and testosterone. And I'm currently on my 2nd set of testosterone pellets, which she inserts every 3 months. Because my imaging indicated potential problems, we're holding off on estrogen pellets for now. But the difference in my life and well-being is already significant and extreme. It's not just about sexual health, which is important in itself, but about a number of other areas of life that testosterone affects. I highly recommend this book for all postmenopausal women also, and I'll link to it below. Dr. Berry's book made a significant impact on my life and my health, and I expect it might for you as well. It's definitely worth a few bucks to learn about the common myths in the medical industry and the choices you can make to improve your health and well-being beyond what your doctor may have told you. For me, my primary health interest is in reversing diabetes, as that was the first thing that went wrong with me, leading to obesity, chronic fatigue, cardiovascular disease, adrenal insufficiency, thyroid issues, specifically reverse T3 problems, chronic pain, lymphedema, neuropathy, necrotizing fasciitis, wound healing problems, congestive heart failure, and over a decade of significant disability. Type 2 diabetes is primarily a disease caused by elevated insulin, which is called hyperinsulinemia. I had diabetes for over 30 years, 12 of which I was on multiple daily injections of insulin. Having discovered that insulin was the problem, I learned how to wean my injected insulin and reduce my homegrown stuff significantly. My diabetes has been in remission for over a year on no diabetic medications at all. I have a playlist that explains how I accomplished this. My diabetes is in remission. Yours can be too. Together, let's kick diabetes to the curb.